Alrighty, we're getting close to the hour, so welcome to everyone who just joined us. This is day 4 of Stormwater Awareness Week. We're so happy to have you here. So in order to give Robert a full hour to present, I'm going to hand it over to him, let him introduce himself, and then share his presentation. So thank you, Robert, for being a presenter this year.
Thank you, and welcome everybody to the workshop, drone use for NPDES inspections. And when we're talking about NPDES inspection, it's a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, as everybody should know, are stormwater inspections. So we're seeing a lot of regulators are looking to see more photographs and inspections. Here in California, some of our regional water quality control boards have been, very specific that they want, photos demonstrating site conditions in your inspection reports. And drone photography is a great way to add that in. When you're looking at drones, the photos document compliance, and they document non-compliance. So you can use them for supporting your inspections on what you're doing on site, or they can be used for enforcement. These photos are great for base maps and maintaining your site BMP progress map that records all your BMPs on site. They're really helpful if you're doing large installations of erosion control to look at your coverage and demonstrate that you've stabilized your site. These photos can document large sites really quickly, and they assist in the implementation of developing overlay maps. So one would think you just go out, grab a drone, and start flying your site, but that's not the case. You have to, especially if you're doing, commercial work, obtain a remote pilot certification. This program requires that you speak, write, and understand English. You have to obtain an FAA tracking number or an FTN by creating an integrated airman certification rating application profile online and taking the exam. This exam, Unmanned Aircraft General, small UAG, you must pass this initial exam and demonstrate understanding of the regulations, operating as requirements, and procedures for flying drones safely. You must have this remote pilot certification in your possession during flights, and complete the online reoccurring refresher training every 12 calendar months. And if you'd like to know where to go to become a pilot to get this application started, you just go to the URL that's located at the bottom of the page. And you can just get this in any search engine. It's at the FAA.gov's website. So the certification exam will cover these topics relating to small unmanned aircraft systems, limitations, flight operation, learning about your airspace classifications and restrictions, how to deal with weather, small and unmanned aircraft loading and performance, emergency procedures, crew resource management, because sometimes you'll need spotters out there if you're doing large portions of land at one time. The exam will also talk about communication, drugs and alcohol, aeronautical decision makings, airport operations, and really important, the pre-flight inspection procedures and operation at night. Right here's the URL for your online exam. So online, there's a number of study resources out there to help you become a drone pilot and pass your FAA examination. Just simply typing drone pilot certification into any search engine will bring up tons of different resources that you can use in becoming a pilot. Now, when we talk about flying the actual drones, there's really two ways that we can use drones to gather images for us. The first is freehand, and you're basically going to fly by eye, may require spotters. You can take video or photographs, and basically you'll perform a pre-flight assessment in the FAA's before you fly website and assess. You can use Google Earth images to assess the area that you're going. The second type of flight is a little bit more detailed, and this is where you use a program flight where you're going to predefine the areas that you're going to capture. And this basically goes like a lawnmower over your site, stitching everything together. You launch it from a fixed pad. And this is really nice because you can make your maps to scale. Some of the maps may take a while to process as they are rather large. When you're using a programmed flight option, you've got really two ways you can go. You can buy some software. The licensing can be anywhere from 40 to 140 a month. There's dozens of online providers. You may have to have a dedicated computer with a little bit heightened processing ability. Again, these images can take up to 48 hours to process, and your computer will be completely dedicated during that 40 hours that it's doing these processing for your client software. The other option is you go with a provider that provides the cloud processing. We find this to be really super valuable because you can access it quickly, share it quickly. It's cloud-based, it's already backed up, and it really helps with your file sharing. We found that using a lot of the larger files is problematic. So oftentimes, once we get our base maps established, we can use screen clipping. We can use a number of different tools to lower the file size without not really compromising the image quality. So documenting compliance, we've got our drone license. We're out there, we're on the site. It's great when you're doing BMP installations, especially large sprayed erosion control or rolled erosion control, because you really get a comprehensive map. You can use it also to document your action items being resolved. Let's say you had to replace silt fence on a large portion. You just fly up and capture it, and then you've got your action item resolved right there. Good for basin calculations as well, especially if you're to scale. Remember that track out is probably one of the larger violations that brings in regulators. So you're able to keep a good record that you haven't had track out. Or if you're a regulator, you can document, not only where the track out's coming from, but the overall impact of the total track out. Good also for documenting your neighbors if they're not, being compliant. Maybe you need to show that so that you can prove that you've been doing the right thing, and some of the problems aren't created by you. I talked about spray and erosion controls. Also, with concrete management, if you're using drones, especially if you've got an in-house, to be able to provide, photos of compliance day in and day out in your reports, it's just creating a great history for you to prove that you're in compliance. Some areas of concern is, of course, we don't want to lose or damage our drones. They're expensive. They can be up to, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and they can cause very serious injury. You down your drone, you've backed up your schedule and you can't get your photos. You always have to check your local restrictions before flight, and of course, fire, power lines, water hazards are an issue. If you're flying larger pieces, you're going to need a lot of batteries. More batteries are better. You need to know the length of your flight so you can anticipate how much battery resource you're going to have on hand. Most of my pilots charge while they're flying. So, they put it up, perform some flight, the battery wears out, they bring it down, charge that battery, and send it up with another. Keep in mind also that cold temperatures can drain your batteries a lot quicker than normal conditions. We always have to be concerned with privacy issues, especially in multifamily or when we're flying over existing homes where residents are at. Uh, and then recording non-compliance. You're out there taking these photos. You really need to scan your images to make sure what's in them before posting them, so that you can resolve maybe an action item that you didn't see in the background or foreground that you didn't realize was there. You want to make sure that if you've taken a photo of anything that requires an action item, typically we like to see a photo of that action item corrected. So this is a routine NPDES report that I've done recently, where simply I have my drone image, do a screen capture, throw some lines into it, and you can say specifically what you need to do, where it needs to be at, and this can go directly to your erosion and sediment control provider. It a picture's worth 1,000 words, and oftentimes we find that just getting a photo in there communicates to many different levels of field associates. Everybody kind of gets it. Screen captures are so easily edited. Typically, when we do these, we always want to have the date the image was taken, and some disclaimers in there when we use BMP drone maps. This is a site that we're putting a BMP progress map together, which I don't know if every state requires the BMP progress map. I think that most do, and the federal permit does, where you have to document the items that were put on your site with dates and times and initials. We find that by taking the drone image, you've already got a lot of BMPs on the site, and you can just throw in some text, right, like this, and dates. This should have my initials on all of them, but it's a great way to document where your BMPs are located, your perimeter controls, your spill kits, stockpile management, where your construction offices are. When you're doing a BMP progress map, you always have to have a comprehensive legend that will show you all the BMPs that you have installed on the site. And you can see this is a fairly complex map. It's about 65 acres. And we were able to put this map together at probably less than an hour by using drone map coverages and just going simply into PowerPoint and throwing some items on it. This would not only be put up on a wall in the construction office, but would likely be right in the inspection report that is required for the SWEP. So do you got a drone? Do you need to register your drone? Absolutely. You have to go to the FAA Gov website here. Register your drone. We typically put license plates on them with your information. This is where you get your identification and your account at the FAA drone zone, they call it. Pretty fairly easy online. So a lot of people are probably thinking, well, do I really need to go through all this to just, be able to fly a drone on my site? I would say absolutely. The fines for airspace violations are significant. You should not only have all your licensing together and register your drone, but probably have an insurance rider for each of the sites that you plan to fly. And these aren't typically that expensive, maybe $1,000 or so that you're covered while you're flying commercially. Again, we talked about some of the airspace violations right here. We're looking at, $182,000 for multiple violations from somebody that decided that they were just going to operate without paying attention to the required laws. This is the FAA's fly before you fly application, which you would go into before each flight and run your flight information. It'll give you also overlays of where you can and can't go. You put your lat lon in there and where you want to take off, and then you notify them, and they are aware that the drone is in the air while you're flying, so that you're protected to a great deal. We find that Google Earth works great for taking some of these overlays and measurements. It goes kind of hand in hand when you're looking at drone flights out there. With that, I mean, this presentation went a lot faster than I anticipated it, but I would like to open up for questions right now.
Yes, if you have any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask or put it in the chat. One of the questions to lead off with is, our company would use drones, and we have a site that is a growing development area, and they have some areas that are already complete. One of the areas is a school, and we had development around the school that what we were needing to take NOT photos. And so we had to navigate how to handle the privacy issue and not fly over the school. Even at a lower elevation, you still get a really broad picture from a drone. So how do you handle situations like that where you are respecting the privacy of the area, but also still able to get the photos that you need?
I have a lot of latitude being in-house, so I would try to do it on a weekend or after hours, just for privacy.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Here's a question in the chat. Does the CGP allow for drone inspections of construction projects specifically?
It would be in addition to, because it's a little ambiguous because we're kind of learning as we're moving along here too. But you would have to physically inspect the entire site. That is the requirement of the CGPs. The drone images are they're another tool in our toolbox to do good inspections. I wouldn't fly a site and not walk it, because there's certain things that you could miss, spills, that sort of thing. But again, tandem to your physical inspection, it's a great tool to add to your toolkit.
Okay, and we have a question from Nico. Who is responsible for NPDES inspections? Is this a city stormwater inspector or a private construction?
Well, anybody that's doing NPDES would just be synonymous to stormwater inspections, because cities have a municipal inspection. They have a municipal permit, so they're doing NPDES inspections out there when they're checking people's sites for their NPDES program. I work for a land developer and a home builder, so I do this in-house to support our construction compliance efforts. We go to great length to show all the good things that we do out on the site, and drone images are just a great way to communicate that.
Okay, we have a question from Dan. Also, how high do you get the zoomed out high altitude pictures for a site map?
Your height restrictions are going to be local. They would be dictated through Know Before You Fly. There is a ceiling that they want you to keep under in most cases, though.
Okay. We have a comment from Troy that says, be aware that there are strict FAA regulations regarding flight over people.
Absolutely, yes. And these drones are, they could feasibly kill someone. It's not something to be taken lightly. So you do have to be really careful.
Okay, and we have another question. How can drones be used for MS4 permit or non-construction inspections? For example, MS4 stormwater conveyance inspections.
Yeah, I would, use it for getting your spatial images. You could do it weekly too. Um, it's one thing to go out and inspect it's another thing to record what you've done while you're there for a record. I mean, it's a lot clearer record of what you saw out there if you've got images.
Came from Steve. Does Caltrans have any restrictions when flying over live traffic? And do they accept drone footage?
Not I don't work a lot with Caltrans. I know that before you fly, the FAA does have a lot of restrictions over traffic. So again, you'd have to get in to the FAA, know before you fly, put in your mapping of where you intend to fly, and that will give you all your area restrictions, your height restrictions. Sometimes you have helicopters coming through, so they'll have you, avoid a certain area or mandate that you have two spotters. It's just different things. It's salt and pepper to taste based on your site conditions.
Okay. And here's one from Dan that I'm also going to add to this question. But is there a need for higher end drone versus a cheaper small drone? And then what I'm going to add is, do you have any recommendations for like drones that seem to be ones that work for construction sites? So what are your preferences and favorites when it comes to picking a drone?
Um, you know, I let my pilots really run that. We use a higher end because of resolution is if we really want to get high resolution on our maps, we can. We typically knock them down to low res just so they can be shared more easily. But if you really like, if let's say you're dealing with habitat restoration and you need to bring back to a certain coverage, like you want to get the 70% rule, or you're, trying to get background vegetation to a certain level, really getting the high res gives you the confidence of where you're going.
Okay, we
It's
have a
actually
go ahead.
there's actually software you can run the images through as well on plant health. I mean, once you get the great base images, you can, apply different programs to do different analysis too.
Fantastic. And we have a comment from Nico. Automated flights, site scan, drone deploy, etc., are compatible with specific drones, which are normally more expensive.
Right. Yeah. If you want to do the program that, the pre-programmed um high res, you're going to need a more expensive drone. If you're just going to, let's say you're just you're throwing in your location into fly before you go and just coming up freehanding stuff, you could get away with a less expensive drone. Again, you're gonna invest in batteries too. Remember, your drone's one cost, but you want to have a pretty good stockpile, 3 or 4 batteries, 5 batteries.
Here's a question from Ken. Do you still need an FAA license if you use a drone that's 249 grams or less weight?
I don't know on that one. We tend to go err on the more conservative side. We haven't taken the approach of using a lighter drone to bypass the requirements, but that may be true.
Yeah, Nico just put a comment with that one saying commercial flights versus recreational flights require a
Yeah.
license.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. You can't argue that it's not a commercial flight if you're using it for a federally required inspection, or, it's definitely in the commercial realm.
Okay, we have a question from Wayne. Is there any concern with losing a signal while flying through large culverts? If so, what are the limitations?
Yeah, there's you want to I would try to keep it in complete sight with spotters if you're having visibility issues and signal issues, or get from the highest vantage point is also another trick that we use.
And from Dan, just curious for the slide that you shared for the BMP map, what altitude
Mhm.
would you estimate that was taken at?
Uh, that one right there, a couple hundred feet. Yeah, that was actually done pre-programmed. We just hit a button and it goes up and takes it. I can get the exact height, but I think it's like a couple hundred.
Okay, are there any more questions? Feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself. And while we're waiting for any questions to come in, if you missed any of this workshop, I know we had some people join a little bit later. It was recorded, so you can watch it, and it'll be available on our website, which is stormwaterawareness.org. And that'll be up in about 24 hours. And we just had a question. Could you share the presentation? Yes,
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
Robert sent me a PDF of his presentation, that will also be up on our website under the resources page.
I'll send that to you, Rebecca.
Perfect. And be sure to sign up for any of the other workshops. We have a great lineup of workshops. I was telling Robert beforehand, there is one very interesting one. If you've been watching the weather, watching the news, there's a hurricane coming to the East Coast. And we scheduled this months ago, but we have a workshop with Raleigh, North Carolina about their stormwater and flood management program. And we're going to be talking with them first thing tomorrow morning. And they're going to be showing live footage from some of their traffic cams about how their stormwater program works. So it's real life. You can see it happening for your eyes on one of our Stormwater Awareness Week workshops. So you might want to check that one out. It's on our website. You can register for it.
Oh, thank you for letting me be a part of this. This is great. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Robert, for presenting. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and hope to see you at another Stormwater Awareness Week workshop.
Thank you.